Hi. Okay, we're gonna figure out if this is working before I get too far. So, thanks for coming if you can hear me. I feel so weird not knowing if you can hear me. Okay, if you see the message I just sent you, which hopefully you have a spot that says chat, um, someone can hopefully let me know if you can hear me. Oh, Tana just messaged me. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so how this is going to work. Um, Oh goodness, we're all hitting questions. Oh, okay, we can hear me. Good. So, hopefully you can see me too. You should be able to, I think. Um, so how it'll work, you're all muted, and that's not because I don't want to hear your lovely voice. I'd actually rather hear it than mine. It's because it gets really tricky when we have so many people. People are going to be talking over each other, and I don't want people to get overshadowed or not get to ask their questions. So you should have a button. Hopefully, I don't know what yours looks like compared to mine, but hopefully you see something that says raise your hand, or where you guys all just typed that you can hear me, you can also just type it there. And either way, I'll see that you've either raised your hand or you're asking a question. Now, if you want to actually talk, which would be awesome because then you don't have to listen to me, you can raise your hand and I'll see that, and I actually can unmute you and you can talk so we can all hear you. So yeah, that's kind of how that's going to work. If more people hop on in a second, I might have to re-explain a little bit of that, but I'm going to go ahead and get started to honor all you people that are on time because I'm always on time and early. So let's see here. Let's get me smaller. All right, there I go. Let's just stick me up there. Okay, so again, thank you for coming. And if you just hopped on, hopefully you can hear. So I wanted to focus this first one on rejecting the diet mentality, which if you are in my intuitive eating support group, which it looks like most of you that are on are, and even if you're not, this is kind of what the title of the Q&A was, which is no more yo-yo dieting. So it's also the first principle of intuitive eating. So yeah, this is kind of something that I just wrote, but it just when you give up dieting, I feel like you give up a lot of negative things in your life, which is really good, which is guilt, like this feeling, this need for self control, which usually feels like a lack thereof. Um, and you gain so many things. I know a lot of the girls that are on here who have already been doing this intuitive eating have gained so much, and I want to hear from you guys here soon. Um, so yeah, you just gain freedom in so many respects, a lot of pleasure with your eating, and just self-empowerment, which is so much better than self-control. It's just such a more positive thing. So anyways, I'm going to try and go through this just really quick. This is a lot of words, so but I just really wanted to highlight a couple things about what intuitive eating is. And for those that already know, sorry that this will just be a reminder. But basically, the point of intuitive eating is just to help you create a healthy relationship with not only food, but with your mind and your body. Because a lot of us, if we've been dieting for a long time, we've kind of gotten out of touch with um, our mind and our body, and we have a lot of diet rules in our head, and we don't really listen to our body. We kind of listen to what other people tell us to do. Um, and okay, I'm gonna keep seeing people saying it won't work for them. Um, if you're on Facebook, can you maybe try and help those people who are messaging get on there so we can still keep going? If not, that's fine, but I feel bad that they can't get on. So anyways, so we're really trying to focus on distinguishing between physical and emotional feelings, like physical being our actual hunger and eating for hunger, and emotional being all the other things. Um, and getting rid of all those food worry thoughts. I know a lot of us, food obsession was a big thing, always thinking about it. I know I always felt like I was thinking about it. But really, the underlying premise, like it says down here, is that we'll kind of learn to respond to our inner body cues, um, which is, ideal. So, and by the way, these are now just really annoying. I was going to actually like make them be animated. And thank you for answering these people. But yeah, I'm just going to just probably skip this part because most of you have heard of intuitive eating, but we're just going to focus on the first one. So let's not worry about the rest of them so we can just get talking about the rejecting the diet mentality, which as you can see is the first principle. The first step, if we can't reject the diet mentality, as long as we still believe that diets will work, then intuitive eating can't really work because we're going to try and follow diet rules rather than our own feelings of hunger and rather than what we want to eat versus what we should eat. Um, so these are a few pictures that I really love when it comes to rejecting the diet mentality. You may have seen this one if you're in my intuitive eating support group, but this might look really familiar to you. And there's the chat below if you want to say anything as I'm going here or questions if you want to ask them as I'm going. Or raise your hand and stop me from talking anytime. But yeah, so this is basically what I'm sure a lot of us have gone through. You start a diet, and that first one that you start, it's so exciting and it's pretty easy, and you're like, man, I can do this. I'm feeling great. But you have to do a lot of restriction. Eventually, that restriction starts to add up, and then you feel a lot of deprivation, which leads to the cravings because you're like, okay, I can't have any of this food, so now that's all I want. And then eventually you're going to give in because guess what? We're human, and guess what? We can't fight biology. And human biology is set up to want sugar and that high fat food because that's what those cavemen would have preferred, last longer. And then that's in guilt, right? So you eat something that you think you shouldn't, and then you feel guilty. And then what do you have to do? So you feel guilty, so it's probably Sunday night, and you're feeling guilty, and then what do you have to do on Monday? Start over again. And it's just this never-ending cycle. And the more that you do diets, the shorter the cycle gets. So maybe the first time you lasted for I don't know, I lasted on P90X for 3 months. But then I totally relapsed, and then after that, I never lasted 3 months ever again. Sorry, this is really bothering me. And so, yeah, and then this might also ring true to some of you. This whole idea of, okay, before the diet, looking pretty healthily sized, I guess you'd say. After the diet, oh, I lost some weight, I got some results, and then once the diet's over, after, which is usually most diets actually lead to weight gain. So yeah, if you've ever experienced that, I know I have. So that's not really what we want from a diet, but that's usually what happens. So yeah, 95% of all dieters will regain their weight loss within 5 years. So and like I said, I know I did. So this is just kind of part of a very long story about why dieting just doesn't work. But I don't want to just rag on diets too much here at the beginning. But I was thinking that the topic for this one could kind of be about how to stop dieting and kind of make that transition away from dieting to intuitive eating. Which, if you just joined in, intuitive eating is kind of just eating when you're hungry, eating food you enjoy, not following any diet rules, and listening to your own body. So, I guess what maybe would be easiest, since I do have so many people who do know about intuitive eating in this group, if you feel like maybe you want to share how you started making that transition, or maybe kind of what was your first step coming from a world of dieting to intuitive eating, kind of what did you do first, or yeah, something like that. So if I have any takers, I'm going to sit here and wait for a second, see if anyone wants to break the ice. That way we can get a break from my voice. Yay, Brittany! Okay, let's see if I can do this. All right, Brittany, you should be good.
So going just along with how I started transitioning to the intuitive eating, I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified, but I just did it one baby step at a time. Like I didn't anticipate being able to jump right into it. I read the book, and one of the things the book says to do, and I know we did in the beginning of the intuitive group, was to make a list of all the foods that you used to not eat and say those were bad for you. I can't have those. So all the foods that you restricted yourself or just completely cut out.
Right.
And step by step, I went through that list, and I would buy it or order it at a restaurant or wherever I could get it, and start eating it. And it was still really hard to get myself in there, but as I started going through each food, it got easier and easier. So I guess that would be my first step, is just taking it in baby steps. And if you all in one day, that's part of the process. And trying to accept that is hard, but it is one of those things you have to do is accept that you will probably binge on that food for a little while because you have to let your mind get to the point of I'm always going to have it. So
Right.
just take it in baby steps
Right.
would be my advice.
So true. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to try and see. I don't know if other people can't raise their hand when yours is raised. So I'm going to mute you again, Brittany. Thank you so much for sharing. But I totally agree about the baby steps. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So yeah, what she said is so true. The whole baby step thing, we have completely broken trust with ourselves over after so many years of dieting because we're convinced that the diet industry has to convince us that we don't know what we're doing, that we can't trust ourselves because then we have to trust someone, so we trust them. I mean, they're the ones who know what they're talking about, right? So Brittany's so right. You have to regain that trust with yourself. And at first, you're not going to believe yourself when you tell yourself that you can have whatever you want whenever you want. You're going to say to yourself, "Oh, you can have whatever you want whenever you want," but maybe only have it 3 times a week because you don't want to gain too much weight. So yeah, at first the goal is to give yourself unconditional permission, which means there are no conditions to the permission you're giving yourself. So redundant. You can say to yourself, I'm going to allow myself to have ice cream anytime I want it. But maybe one time you're feeling in the mood for it and you're hungry, but you say, no, but you just had it yesterday. Well, that's not unconditional permission. So Brittany, she's doing amazing. Just posted about cereal the other day, and it took some time to get to those points where you can have a box of cereal in the cabinet and not eat all of it in one sitting, because I'm sure we've all been there. So thank you. Does anyone else who's in here who's kind of tried to start making that transition have anything to share about how they started doing that or kind of their first steps? Yay, Tana! Yay! Hold on. Let's go here. I got this. All right. Okay, I
So
always say it differently. Is it Tana or Tana?
it's Tana, like Montana. That's what I tell people.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for raising
Um,
your hand. Go ahead.
oh, sure. So I transitioned to intuitive eating. It really hasn't been that long ago, but it was right around the holidays. And I thought, wow, what a dangerous, scary time to make that transition. But I also knew that it would be a great opportunity. For one, I knew I was going to eat. Thanksgiving, I was going to have the foods, but what a great opportunity to use what I had read in the book to apply it to a Thanksgiving meal, which usually I leave the table absolutely unable to walk, so full. So I started it then. I was out of town, all of the worst case scenario things that could happen. And that's where I made the gradual transition. Now, I will tell you, I was still it was a slow transition, just like Brittany said. I was still eating some diet foods right after Thanksgiving, and it was, I was really trying, but I was still, I told myself I wanted those diet foods. I really liked them. And some of them I do like, but that has changed greatly now. I mean, that's been, a few months or almost 2 months now. So, I mean, it was definitely scary because I had just lost all of the weight I had wanted to lose for 1 year. It took me 1 year to try to lose this weight, and here I'm saying you can eat whatever you want. But I was able to, use the book and journal and just focus on the feelings. And I have never been so happy. I know I post about it all the time. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm very, very free from the nightmare and the hell, honestly, that I was in for 1 year trying to lose not even very much weight, 10 pounds. I couldn't even lose it. Um, I think my body was just had been dieted to death. But I do have a question that was brought up before about the list of foods. So I made a list of foods that I never let myself eat unless it's in a very negative binging sort of time. And but I don't really know how to manage that list. So I'm curious what others do. Do you go and buy all of those foods, or do you just buy one at a time, or a couple, and just to have it just in case? I mean, I don't really, the book doesn't really guide you in that. So I'm just curious what everyone has done to kind of get through the list of foods.
Right. Kathy says she has some ideas, so I'm gonna put your hand down. Thank you so much for sharing, and let me see
Sure.
if I can get Kathy on here. Alrighty. Kathy, you should be good to go. So the whole list of food things, so when we're trying to make peace with food, kind of how did you go about that?
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still kind of in the middle of that legalization thing. But when I got the book, I read it and I did it kind of like dieting people do. And I went whole hog and just bought all this stuff. And I thought, I can do this. And of course, it led, I went kind of overboard and I was like so frustrated because I was trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually found a dietitian that only teaches intuitive eating. And so she, the first week, every time I go to see her, she, adds on to what we talked about the last week. And so, the first week, of course, she said to keep a food journal, not amounts of food at all, but just kind of what you ate, chicken, noodles, whatever, just what you ate. And then she had me make the list. And then when I went back, she said, well, out of this list, what do you think you can start eating that would be not like the scary, you don't take the scariest food. Like for me, that's peanut butter. I can't, I was always like, I can't have a jar of peanut butter. I just can't. So she said, don't pick the worst one, pick something that, and I realized that one of the things that always led me to a binge was wheat thins. I don't know why,
I love
but I
it.
would never eat them. And I don't really, I mean, they're okay, but for some reason, once I ate those, it would always leave as like the doorway, the gateway drug kind of thing. And so she said to incorporate those into a snack or a meal a couple times every day for the first week. And so
Right.
I did that, and then I mean it went okay because they weren't really a food that I really love, so it was pretty easy to do that. And then then she said, okay, well, then she wanted me to incorporate like chocolate or cookies or something like that. And so it's been a rough ride. It's like the diet mentality is that straight line from point A to point B with no room for error. And
Hmm.
the intuitive eating is up and down, and you're just going to have bumps in the road. And so I kind of started this, I think at the beginning of November, and I've had some issues. I think after Thanksgiving, I binged for like a week.
Yeah.
But the last couple of weeks, I went back to work last week, and it was pretty stressful. But I feel pretty good at it. But I'm also addressing some of the things that are behind all my eating issues, which are personal issues, that working on my personal development stuff, and that along with working on the eating, I think is starting to kick in and starting to show me some progress.
Right. You're so right though. It's not just the food, we have to work on. We have a lot of repairing to do if we spend a long time dieting. And it goes, farther than just repairing our relationship with food. Oftentimes we have neglected ourselves and our own needs during that whole period. So, thank you for sharing. And I completely agree with what your dietitian said. Actually, Tana, Montana, dang it. So, Breaking Free from Emotional Eating, which is an amazing book, and if you have like $4 to spare on Amazon, it's like this thick. It's really small, and she actually talks about, you were saying that there was no kind of direction in the intuitive eating book on how to make that list of foods. She kind of gives you a more practical way of doing it, and yeah, Kathy made a really good point. Don't start with peanut butter if that's your kryptonite. I started with frozen yogurt, which was good because I had to go out and get it, which I did go out and get it for like 2 weeks straight, but it was better than cereal, which is my kryptonite. It's like Kathy's peanut butter because, it was going to be in my house and it was my scariest thing. So I didn't start with that. And now I can bring cereal home and actually forget that it's there. So, You just have to go in an order that feels comfortable to you. Okay, so I'm going to mute you real quick. And the reason I'm muting you too is because sometimes there's like background noise and feedback, and I'm recording this for those that couldn't come, so I didn't want it to get all crazy. If you have 5 animals like me, you know it can get loud. So I actually had a couple of polls that I had made. Hopefully you can see them here in a second. I'm going to launch this poll. Let's see. Okay, hopefully you can see it. I have a couple here just to kind of get an idea of where maybe we've all kind of been. So, you know, we're not going to have time maybe for everyone to raise their hand, but just so you can kind of put some input on what your diet experience has kind of been like. And I think you can only pick one, so that's stupid. So pick the one maybe that you've tried the most, because if you're like me, you've tried all of those things. So yeah. I would have clicked on all of them if it would have let me. Did not give me that option though. Well, it looks like most of you are voting on counting calories. You know, like I said, you've probably tried more than one of those things. And the counting calories is definitely, yeah, Sarah, yes, all of them for sure. Counting macros was my last hurrah to dieting. I was like, all right, this one will work because I'm not counting calories. Ugh, so not true. But yeah, so if you've tried one or any of those, then you know how frustrating it can be. Yeah, so, okay, interesting. Just want to do that. I'm going to close that. Okay, now this is going to be annoying too because you can only pick one. So, oh wait, maybe you can pick more than one. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, one or more. Perfect. Okay, so which effects of dieting have you experienced? There we go. I was thinking maybe this wouldn't just be one of them. I don't know how I didn't do the other one like that. Um, right. Okay. So looks like we're definitely all in agreement on the middle three. Especially that middle one, emotional stress and bored eating. And that is something that, I mean, when you were a kid, you know, out playing, running around, and let's say your friend hit you in the face because they're a jerk, I'm sure your first thought wasn't to go to food, it was to go to your mom or your guardian or whoever it was. But now if my friend hit me in the face, I don't know what I would do, but I probably wouldn't, well, I'd run to mom still. But as we get older, it seems like food becomes more of the answer. And part of that is, you know, media always portraying food as like, use it when you're celebrating, use it when you're sad, use it when you're happy. But another part of it is actually we can cause stress and emotion in ourselves because of food. So when you're on a diet, when you're counting those calories, let's say you're on MyFitnessPal and it's like you can only eat 1,200 a day. Yeah, right. And you hit 1,250. Oh my goodness. We've all been there probably. And what does that do? It makes you feel bad. And so then you actually are eating in response to eating, which is just, you know, a cycle in and of itself. Or, you know, it causes stress too. You're stressed because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So yeah, and then it looks like we all agree on the feelings of restriction, which is something that makes intuitive eating awesome. And for those that are doing intuitive eating right now, have already kind of said, and I know that they would say that it just there is no restriction or deprivation, and it's awesome. The whole binge eating thing. Most of you that know me know that I had a binge eating problem. I know a lot of you have frequent overeating, and you know I always tell people it's not your fault. It wasn't your fault. It isn't your fault. It's a human response to deprivation, and it will happen to everyone who deprives themselves long enough. Um, but yeah, it's a shameful thing for most people, so you just don't hear about it as much. And then, of course, increased cravings because you're restricting things, and then yo-yoing weight goes up and down because it just depends on how long you can be on the diet. So thank you for sharing. So for those that are kind of new to the idea of intuitive eating, or for those that can remember when you were transitioning, kind of your initial questions you had about how do I stop dieting, how do I stop thinking that way, I guess I just want to open it up for any questions if you can think of. You know, I know a lot of you may not have any because you're already doing it, but if you can remember what you asked when you first heard about it, I would love to hear from you. So I'm going to give you guys a second to think. Just like when I was a teacher, you always have to give waiting time, and it's really awkward, but you do it. Oh, who do we got? Brittany! And weight gain worry. Okay, Sarah, I see yours. So I'm going to unmute Brittany first. All right, Brittany, hit us up.
So that was actually my question as well when I first started, was the weight gain thing, because we're all dieting to
Right,
lose weight, and
right.
then giving ourselves this permission to eat the foods that we said were bad. So I guess the question that I had that's good for the new people is, how is my weight going to drop, because I did know I needed to lose weight, and how is it going to stabilize if I allow myself to eat these foods?
Right. And Brittany, I wish I could remember some of the first questions that you asked, but that is almost everybody's first question, which if you've ever been to my website and you've looked at the common questions videos, there's a reason why 3 out of like the 10 of them have to do with weight. Because yes, you're right. We were dieting or are dieting to lose weight. And so the best thing that I can say that I read in the book and that I'm learning right now is that if you have been eating because of emotions, stress, or boredom, if you have been overeating in a response to dieting and being deprived, if you have been having these cravings because you're on diet and kind of going overboard with those cravings because you're like, screw it, whatever, you get in that rebellious phase, um, then you most definitely or most likely have some extra weight on you because you've been doing these things. Like I said, it's not your fault, but they've been happening, and so you probably have some extra weight on you, which means that if you transition to this intuitive eating, which is all about eating when you're hungry and giving your body the amount of fuel that it asks for, which, by the way, it does a better job of knowing than MyFitnessPal. If you do that, then, and you're not, binging because of dieting or anything like that, then eventually your weight will stabilize because you're no longer eventually, using food to deal with emotions, using food to binge with. So eventually your weight will stabilize. But here's the thing that I always have to say about weight. I know that I think it's the hardest thing about this. Weight cannot be a priority. Not only can it not be a priority, it really just has to be on the back burner. Um, because as long as weight is a priority, and people that have been doing this, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to do this intuitive eating thing, but I really want to lose that 10 pounds, you are going to not make decisions based on what you want. You're still going to make decisions based on what you think will make you get down to that 10 pounds until you decide, okay, what's more important than losing that weight right now is fixing my relationship with food, actually finding something that's maintainable, feeling better about myself, feeling happier. And then over time, I'm going to trust that this process will get me down to a natural weight because I will be using food, you know, when I'm hungry. So, Brittany, do you feel like that's kind of a place that maybe you've gotten to or that you're getting to, that mindset?
It definitely is, because I've noticed that when I was on my Fitness Pal, I'd be like, okay, I have 1,200 calories, and I would eat so little during the day that I would eat like this huge meal for supper, and it was way more than my body needed, and I'd feel so full. But now that I've gotten a lot better with listening to my body and stopping when it tells me that I'm full, I notice that I eat a lot less per meal than I used to. I may eat more frequently, but it's still not as much. It actually amazes me how little food legitimately makes me feel full. So
Yeah,
I do think that because of that, I'm like, okay, my body will regulate itself in time
yeah,
where it's supposed to be, not where I think it should be.
yes. And that's so important that you said that because we all at some point probably, or maybe still do, have that goal weight number in our mind. Mine was always 120 because my mom was always 120 and she's like 5'3" and she's different than me. But for some reason I just was too competitive, and our goal weight is oftentimes much lower than either what's natural for our body or what's realistically attainable. And I just think to myself, okay, do I want to work my butt off, feeling miserable to get to 120 and then be so scared to ever gain weight again that I'm still stuck in this like restrictive pattern? Because that's what's going to happen. When I did P90X, I got down to my lowest weight ever, and I was still unhappy because guess what? I never figured out how to be happy with my body in the first place. So you're not magically going to be happy with it even if you hit your goal weight. And then you think, oh, once I get to my goal weight, I'm going to eat normal again. And it's like, no, you're going to be scared to eat because you don't want to gain the weight back. So I think that's so great that you're starting to get to that point, and I so agree. I eat a lot less with intuitive eating than I did when I was dieting because I'm not binging as much, if at all, anymore. Um, and yeah, because your body doesn't need as much as maybe you think it does, or you think it wants. A lot of people are afraid they're going to eat everything, but your body doesn't want to eat all day. And once you figure out how to listen to your body, you'll notice that. Um, Thank you, Brittany. I think I'm gonna. Do you have anything else to say before I mute you?
Nope, that pretty much, covered
The weight.
everything that I went into as far as the weight gain thing.
Hey, cool. All right. I just don't know if I can like unmute people at the same time, so I'm gonna mute you again. Okay. So if anyone else has any, I know that the weight thing is really big with rejecting the diet mentality. So if you have any more questions about that, or just any other questions in general about how do I really do this, what are some tips on getting out of the diet mentality. So I'm going to give you a second if you have anything. Want to get the guts to raise your hand. It's not scary, I promise. Look, here, I'm going to show you my dog while we're waiting. You guys see her? She's napping. She's not entertained by my Q&A. All right, anybody? Who's going to bail me out? I have too many people that know too much about it in here. Okay, so until someone raises their hand. Oh, wait, Diana. Let's see. I asked you about using the little. Yeah, okay. Um, so, there's, what am I trying to say here? So, you will never hear me recommend that you follow anything that tells you what to do. Because it's not intuitive, because intuitive is listening to yourself. So, Sarah, for example, I think she's the only one on here. Yeah, Sarah right now is currently doing the 21-day fix. And when we talked, she was really hesitant because of this whole intuitive eating thing. And I told her, I don't follow the meal plan. Yay! Yeah, she's loving the workouts. But I don't follow the meal plan because it doesn't work with intuitive eating. And some of I tried to make it work with intuitive eating, and yeah, it doesn't work. And so I would say that when it comes to any program that tells you what to do eating wise, I just steal the workouts and just totally ignore that part. Um, and Deanna, the reason I didn't get into it more on the phone is because, as you can see, there's a lot to talk about with intuitive eating. So I just kind of wanted you to be able to hear more about it tonight. But I would say with any, yay, Taylor, they are the best. I would say with any workout program, that you're trying, or if you're just running or whatever you're doing, yoga, whatever, I would pair it with intuitive eating. I wouldn't pair it with whatever it said. I wouldn't pair it with whatever the latest craze is. I wouldn't pair it with anything. Um, Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so let's let Kathy talk. I do have stuff I could talk about, but I just never know, like when I was a teacher, I never know if I'm boring the crap out of them, which usually I was. Okay, so let's unmute Kathy. All right, hey, Kathy.
Hey, so
Hi.
one thing, like I said, I'm kind of going through the legalization thing, and I've kind of found myself like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I wish I could just get this over with and get to the part where I was done with this, because it's like I know that that diet mentality thing is so hard because it's like I know I'm letting myself eat stuff, I'm not beating myself up, but in the back of my mind, every once in a while pops that thing up about, well, how is this ever going to work if you're eating cookies all the time, or whatever. And even though it's not all the time, but I just, I get, because I was such into like the sugar detox, and I was so into
Mm-hmm.
not eating processed foods and eating clean and all that stuff. But I realized when I look back that even though I was at my lowest weight ever just 6 or 7 months ago, I I was eating all the time, but it was like I wasn't paying attention to whether I was hungry or not. I just knew that I had, this many calories and I had worked out and burned 500, so then that meant I could eat 2,000 that day and I would eat because I could. And I was like, "Oh, look, I can eat all this food and I'm still thin." But in the back of my mind, I was still like so afraid to eat anything. The other stuff, I was eating salads and I was eating all this other stuff to fill myself up and just so I could eat something.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't let myself eat this, cookies or candy or cake or all the sweets or anything because I was like, I know that's a slippery slope, and if I start on that, I'm just going to fall off the cliff. And
Right.
here I am, and then my worst nightmare was I gained it all back. Well, guess what? I gained it all back.
Yeah. Which is not, I mean, you're not alone. Um, okay. You
Yeah, and
actually, sorry, go ahead.
I just, I kind of, I still have those thoughts because I still, know a lot about so-called healthy eating, and so I'm like, but then I kind of like have these discussions with myself in my head, like, okay, Kathy, when you were binging, even though you were eating healthy, 80% of the time, you were still binging, and then you would eat all this massive quantities of stuff. And even if it was only, once a month, I mean, that's still not good for you. And so, I'm like, and you did that for 30 years almost. So, even if this takes a year to get to where you're really an intuitive eater, it's worth it because no matter what, it's worth it. And so I just have to remind myself, like you said, about the weight thing and all that. And that just really, every time I start thinking about the weight, I just think, I can't think about that right now. I just have to motor on. And I know that whatever my weight is, that doesn't make me a good or bad person ever.
Right. You're so right. Um, Thank you for sharing again. I love that you're seeing someone who's specifically, wow, words, um, works with intuitive eating because it can be kind of risky going to dietitians who don't because, you never know what they're going to tell you. So that's really awesome. Um,
Yeah, I feel pretty lucky about that because apparently that's not very common, and so I feel lucky that I found somebody not only that does that, but like is real close to where I live, and
right,
we really, I really get along with her, and I think she's really great.
right. It's not common. You're right. Okay. So I'm going to mute you again real quick here. Okay, so Kathy made me think of, and I see all your stuff down here. I'll get to it here in just a second. Um, okay, so first of all, she was mentioning the whole sugar detox, that she tried, and all these different things. And so it's okay, if we're going to reject diets, we have to be able to recognize a diet. So just very quickly, a diet is anything that tells you what to eat, what not to eat, how much of it to eat, when not to eat it. Anything that does that is a diet. So even these cleanses and these detoxes, those are all diets because anything that's not coming from within you is a diet. Anything that you can't see yourself doing for life is a diet. So even if it's like, okay, well, I'm eating 1,800 calories and I'm counting in my fitness pal, but that's better than 1,200. Do you want to count calories until you're, 65 sitting on a beach somewhere? No? Okay, then it's a diet. So just to kind of clarify about how do I tell if I'm on a diet, if you're doing something that someone else or something else told you to do. Okay, so Jen, thank you for kind of answering a question down here. But Laura was asking about cravings and then quick lunches and satisfying sugar cravings. So yeah, Jen made a good point saying cravings are your body trying to tell you something. And like I was mentioning earlier, cravings come from restriction most often. So, when we're restricting our body so much, our cravings will increase, but also they can come from other things too, hormones and things like that. But it is our body trying to tell us something. And so, let's say, I just started Insanity Max 30. Well, guess what I've been craving more often? Carbs. Why? Because my body's like, hey, you need more energy. So it's just my body telling me what I need. Maybe if I was doing something more strength based, it would be craving more protein. But yeah, you're right. So it is your body telling you something. But as far as sugar goes, we all know sugar is addicting. Okay, it is. But even though it's addicting, um, you don't have to like quote unquote be or feel addicted to it when you're doing intuitive eating. Okay, I love sugar as much as the next person. I even started my own vegan cupcake company, which I don't do anymore. If that tells you how much I love sugar. So Now I can have sugar in my house, in my cabinet, and forget about it. But before, the reason that those cravings are usually so strong is because we think we shouldn't have it or we don't allow ourselves to have it. So when we do go to eat it, we overeat it because we're like, well, I shouldn't be eating this, but I already started, so might as well eat all of it. But that's something that doesn't need to happen on intuitive eating and won't happen as often eventually on intuitive eating because you know you can have it anytime you want it, and I promise it will lose its allure. It won't be as appealing. In the beginning it will, but eventually it won't be as appealing because you know you can have it whenever. I rarely go eat frozen yogurt now, and I ate it for 2 weeks straight at the beginning. So that's something to keep in mind about cravings. I also have a cravings video on my website, so you can check that out, healthyasfit.com. As far as lunches go, I'm just going to answer that quickly with Pinterest. Go to Pinterest, just because I want to see the rest of these questions. Okay, is calorie counting important? Okay, so calorie counting again. I kind of like I was just mentioning. Do you want to do it when you're 65 sitting on the beach? I don't know why I always do that. I'm not going to be sitting on the beach when I'm 65. I don't have that kind of luck. So if you don't want to be doing it for life, then it's going to still instill that diet mentality because it's going to instill guilt when you go over. It makes you think of good and bad foods. Well, I shouldn't eat this, because there's too many calories in it, even if you want it, and then eventually you're going to eat 10 of them because you didn't let yourself. It can even stop you from eating healthy foods. Like, I didn't want to eat avocado when I was calorie counting, and it's freaking delicious and it's good for you because, as you know, if you've calorie counted, it has a lot of calories, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So yeah, calorie counting doesn't lead anywhere good. It's hard to put later. Yes, okay. So obviously, you know, there is a medical reason to lose weight. There is, obviously for health reasons, some people need to lose weight. Um, but I'm just going to actually tell you exactly what the authors of the book just talked about in this course I'm taking about intuitive eating. Yes, some people need to lose weight, but where has dieting gotten you weight-wise? Because it's gotten you somewhat to where you are. Not everyone. Some people, never diet and get to that point. But if you've tried dieting and it didn't work and it got you either worse off or it didn't get you where you wanted to be, then I guess what I say is why not give this a try? Yes, there might be some weight gain in the beginning. The person who wrote Breaking Free from Emotional Eating needed to lose weight. She did. But she ate cookie dough for like, I don't remember how long, a long time when she first made this transition. She did gain some weight. But eventually, now I'm talking over a long period of time. It took her like 2 years to eventually get down to her natural weight. And you might be thinking, 2 years? I don't have 2 years. 2 years is not a lot in the span of a lifetime. When you could be, the alternative to that is spending 2 years going up and down in your weight, attempting to master dieting when it can't be mastered. Um, so, yeah. And I just feel like as long as you have weight loss as your priority, you're not going to make intuitive decisions. You can still want to lose weight and know you need to lose weight, but as long as that's like above everything else, it's going to be really hard to make 100% intuitive decisions. But I recommend, Sarah, I'm sure you have, but maybe watch those weight videos I made or go onto the Intuitive Eating Community website. If you Google intuitiveeatingcommunity.org or something like that, there's a lot of weight discussion on there, which might be helpful to talk to maybe other people that are in the same boat. Yes, cravings can also mean you have a deficiency in something. That is very true. Let's see. That sounds great. Oh no, you can't see the questions. Sorry. Hopefully you figured out what they were. I did not see that until the end. Um, cool. Okay, Jen, thank you for sharing so much. But yeah, hopefully you figured out what I was talking about. Sorry, I will share them next time. We were just talking about weight, obviously, and calorie counting is not a good method. Okay, so let me clear all these out. Based on all of what others have said, does anyone have anything else they want to share or any other questions based on what other people had questions about? Maybe asking about, is what I'm thinking or is what I'm thinking of doing or doing a diet? I don't know, more weight questions. That always seems to be a big one. Anyone else feeling like saying something? Brittany! Ha! Brittany always saves me. Okay. Let's unmute her. All right, Brittany.
So one of the thoughts that I've been having recently is, and it kind of creates a little war in my brain of, is this diet mentality speaking, is this intuitive speaking, or what is just because we're intuitive eating now and we're giving ourselves that permission to eat the foods that we didn't like, cupcakes and cookies and cereal. My mindset is that doesn't necessarily mean to completely just drop healthy eating. I think that there'll be a push for healthy eating. That doesn't mean for lunch every week you go to McDonald's because you love McDonald's. If that's your craving you're trying to beat and you have to do that, then I guess that's one thing. But you still have to, I guess in my mind, make healthy choices and still make sure that you're eating healthy foods and not just chips and cookies and candy. So there's that war in my head of, is that the diet mentality talking? Is that intuitive eating talking? How does that all fit together?
That is a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because I'm sure you're not the only one wondering, oh my gosh, she just told me to go eat whatever. I'm about to go peace out. I'm about to go eat all the junk food ever. And so the 10th principle, there's 10 principles in intuitive eating. And the 10th one, as you know, if you've read the book, is gentle nutrition. And they put it at the end for a reason. When you're first making this transition from dieting to intuitive eating, if nutrition is, again, a top priority, and you think to yourself, oh, I should still be eating all these other foods, that's at the beginning, that's why it's the 10th principle. It has to kind of be like, all right, but first I need to make peace with food before I can consider nutrition. First I need to kind of make peace with all these foods, kind of like we were talking about making the list of foods. But eventually, Brittany, as maybe you've noticed, and as maybe some of the rest of you have noticed, your body will naturally want healthier foods. And by healthier, I mean nutrient-dense foods. If you really, intuitive eating is about, what does it say down here? Being in tune with your body or something along those lines. Being in tune with your body. And if you really listen to your body is not going to be telling you, hey, that McDonald's that you just ate 6 times today feels great. No. But if you're not listening to your body, then maybe you will keep eating the McDonald's. But if you truly are being intuitive, then eventually you'll start wanting those foods that make you feel better. So something that eventually, once you get past the whole making peace with food thing, eventually you want to start really listening. Okay, like last night I had pizza, takeout pizza. I had a stomach ache for the rest of the night. It felt awful. It tasted good, but it made me feel like poop. So I should listen to my body and not my mind in that case and realize, okay, that didn't make me feel good though. So I need to find something else that tastes good that doesn't make me feel like that. So I don't know, Brittany, has that been something that you've tried, is listening to kind of how it makes you feel?
I definitely have. One of the things that I originally cut out of my diet because of sugar was sodas. And I remember I used to love sodas. I would have, like, I kid you not, 4 or 5 a day. I was like, okay, those are quote unquote bad for me, and I need to cut them out. There's too much sugar, too much, quote unquote fake stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when I allowed myself to drink them, I found out that they actually made me really sick.
Yeah.
So I did stop eating them or drinking them for the most part because of that. So I have been listening to my body in that aspect, that these foods that I thought I liked and would eat and drink a lot of actually don't make me feel good. And I do find myself wanting more fruits. And when I'm at the grocery store, I'm like, oh, what fruits can I get, that are here at the grocery store? So I do find myself, I guess, naturally wanting and gearing more towards the healthier, I guess, foods.
Right. But the thing is, you let yourself get there naturally. Had you said to yourself, okay, I'm going to eat intuitively, but I need to force myself to eat this much, fruits and veggies in a week, it wouldn't have worked out the same way. But now you want those foods because you realize that maybe the other foods don't feel as good, but you still eat cereal, right? Because you love it and it doesn't make you feel bad when you wouldn't have before. So it's just about learning over time what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and what tastes good and what doesn't taste good. But that's the fun of it. I don't know about you, but I thought that was the fun part.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that part up because I always forget to talk about that part. And actually, so on that note, kind of what I was thinking, since the first principle is rejecting the diet mentality, which is what we've kind of been focusing on here in this first one, I would like to do these, fairly frequently and actually just move through the principles. So what I'm going to recommend to you, highly, 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 I hate sounding cheesy, but it's so true, and I know, let's see, Brittany and Kathy and Crystal, hey Crystal, and Sarah and Tana and Taylor, I think you just got it, and Sandra, I know you're reading it, would agree with me. You've got to get the book. You just have to. And I hate using the phrase life changing, but I'm gonna, because it is. So if you go to Amazon, just type in Intuitive Eating third edition, because this has been out since 1995, so they kept updating it. Get that book. I think it's like $10. It's like $8 on Kindle, I think. If you don't want to get that one, Breaking Free from Emotional Eating is amazing. What's another one? Those are like my main two. If you have a binging specific problem, Brain Over Binge is really good. But honestly, those three or two of those three together make the biggest difference in my mind. But if you're going to start with one, make it Intuitive Eating third edition. Woman, Food, and God, that's actually one I'm about to start reading. That one's amazing. Rent it from the library. Oh yeah, they do like free Kindle rentals at a lot of libraries now. Good point, Kathy or Taylor. Yeah, they have audiobooks, so if you don't like to read, you can listen to it. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Tana, dang it. I want to say it in Spanish. I'm so sorry. That's how you'd say it in Spanish. So I used to be a Spanish teacher. I'm not just weird. So she says she writes down when she feels like crap so she can remember later, like if she wants whatever that was that made her feel like crap, she can remember, oh, wait, that made me feel poopy. And maybe she's going to give it another chance, but at least she'll remember that it made her feel like crap. Sarah, give it time, girly. She's got to keep listening. Oh, she said she's having a hard time relearning how to listen to her body, but it just takes time. And then I saw another one. Oh, I crave foods. Yeah, so saying I crave foods like chicken wings, insert any food there. And there's no way to modify them. But with intuitive eating, you don't have to. So that's what we've been talking about. You don't have to modify any of your favorite foods. I love Oreos, and I certainly don't modify them because who would? They're delicious. So this intuitive eating is not about modifying. It's about modifying our mind and why we eat, not what we eat. And eventually modifying what we eat, but over time because of what our body tells us. So again, if what I'm saying sounds crazy or makes no sense, or any of the above, go get the book. And that way we can kind of do the book together. So next time, the second principle is, what is it? Here, it's right here. I want to say it's make peace with food. Nope, honor your hunger. That's not till number 4. Honor your hunger. So the next one is learning how to eat because of hunger again, which all of you at some point in your life did that. We were born with the ability to eat because we were hungry, not because of other reasons. So good news, you've all done it and you can all do it again. So that's what I would say. Let's see. Any suggestions for how to keep a food diary? Yeah, so the food diary thing, and then I'm going to have to wrap this up. I know that, Tana, you keep one, and I tried, and there are, I have some things. If you're going to keep a food diary, it can be triggering because you may have kept one when you were dieting. What I would say is focus on your feelings, not what you're eating. So, for example, for breakfast, a lot of times I eat waffles because they're delicious. And so instead of focusing on, oh, I ate waffles, they were 190 calories, the syrup had this many calories. Instead, I would say, I ate 2 waffles and my hunger was a 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. And afterwards, I was this much satisfied or my body felt this way. Focus on feelings, not numbers. And then it may be less triggering. But I stopped doing it because it was a little triggering, but I just didn't need it anymore. But as Tana was talking about, it can be helpful to recognize feelings and how your body feels after you eat something. Yeah. So I've been told you should keep track of what you eat to track cravings. So again, that's something that you've been told, which is fine. So you can do that, but I'm not going to do anything that doesn't feel good to me. So if someone were to tell me to go, even if an intuitive eating counselor told me to go track my food and that didn't make me feel good, a really good one would tell you you need to do what works for you. So as you're reading the book, your journey is not going to be the same as everyone else's. So um, if journaling works for you like it does for Tana, then great, do it. If it doesn't, then don't. Um, I feel like that's probably the best thing I can say about that. And yes, feeling for sure. Okay, so I could talk about this forever, but I loved this. I hope you did too. I feel like it can be really helpful. If it wasn't helpful, sorry. But go to Amazon, get that book. If you can't get it or have a problem getting it, can't find it, please message me. I will make sure you get that book somehow. And then next time, just keep your eyes peeled for the next invite. I want to have it sooner rather than later. And hopefully, we'll talk about honoring our hunger. But until then, try and get that book. Okay, did I say that enough times? I think so. Okay, I'm going to stop recording and stop sharing my face for all of you. Thank you so much for logging on. I was so scared no one would show up. So thank you so much. And thank you for helping people figure it out. I'm so sorry it was complicated. Hopefully the next time now will be easier. Um, yes, thank you. Yay, thank you. Okay, so you all have a great night, and I'll keep in touch with all of you however we keep in touch. Okay, bye.